All right, picture this. You're at a gas station, you pop the hood, and you notice your coolant's just a little bit low. So you do the sensible thing, right? You grab a jug off the shelf, top it up, and drive off thinking, hey, I just saved the day.
But what if I told you that simple, well-intentioned act just kicked off a slow, silent, and totally catastrophic chemical attack inside your engine? That brown sludge you're looking at? Yeah, it almost always starts with that exact same simple top-up.
So here's the crucial question, the one we're going to figure out today. Could this be happening inside your engine right now without you even having a clue? Well, let's find out. Okay, before we dive into the catastrophic failure part, you've really got to understand what your coolant is supposed to be doing in the first place. Believe me, it's a lot more than just keeping things from freezing up in the winter. Its job is way more complex. Look, your coolant has 5 absolutely critical jobs. It's got to pull scorching heat out of the engine block. It has to stop all the different metals inside from literally eating each other alive through corrosion. It's got to lubricate things like your water pump seals. And on top of all that, yeah, it raises the boiling point and lowers the freezing point. The secret sauce that makes all this work, it's a very delicate chemical inhibitor package. And that right there is where the danger really lies.
So let's get right to the heart of it, the 3 core coolant technologies. And if you remember only one thing from this whole explainer, please make it this. Color is just dye. It is not a reliable way to figure out what kind of coolant you have. It is all about the chemistry inside that bottle.
Okay, so there are 3 main families. First up, you've got IAT. That's the old-school green stuff you'd find in classic cars. It uses silicates and phosphates to physically coat everything, kind of like a shield. It works fast, but it wears out in about 2 years. Then you've got OAT, the modern, long-life stuff in a lot of newer vehicles. It uses organic acids that chemically bond right to the metal, protecting it for 5 years or more. And finally, there's HO8, which is a hybrid. It mixes those long-life acids from OAT with a small dose of those fast-acting silicates. So you see, 3 totally different strategies for protecting your engine.
So what happens when these different chemistries meet? Well, it's not a friendly get-together. It's a chemical war. We're about to look at the exact reaction that creates a destructive gel right inside your cooling system.
So here's the chemistry behind the disaster. The protective chemicals from the old IAT coolant, like silicates, and the organic acids from the new OAT stuff, well, they're like rival gangs. Instead of doing their jobs and protecting the engine, they attack each other. They bind together and then they literally fall out of the liquid solution, forming a solid. It's a process called precipitation. And folks, that is the birth of that engine-killing sludge. And this is what you get. This thick, mayonnaise-like gunk is the result. And you know what the worst part is? Engine heat acts like a catalyst. It causes this gel to polymerize, which means it links up into longer, thicker, nastier chains. It gets worse with every single drive, and trust me, it will not dissolve on its own.
So where does all this sludge go? It travels everywhere the coolant does, but it always clogs the narrowest passages first. I'm talking about your heater core, which has tiny little tubes, some as small as 3 millimeters wide. It gets blocked solid. This is exactly why one of the first and most common symptoms of mixed coolant is your heater suddenly blowing cold air. That right there, that's a massive red flag. You know, the most dangerous thing about this whole problem is how sneaky it is. The damage happens slowly, quietly, over weeks and months. By the time the symptoms are obvious enough for you to notice, the internal damage is already severe and really expensive.
Let's just walk through this timeline of destruction real quick. In the first few weeks, you might not notice much. Maybe the coolant just looks a little murky, or the heater isn't quite as warm. It's really easy to miss. But within 1 to 3 months, that heater is blowing noticeably cold air, and the engine's probably running hotter than it should. By the 3 to 6 month mark, you are dealing with active overheating, and your coolant looks like muddy coffee.
Okay, you need to know these 5 red flags. If your engine is running unusually hot, if the temperature gauge is jumping all over the place, if the heater is blowing cold, if you look in the reservoir and the coolant looks like a milkshake, or if your cooling fan just won't shut off, you have to investigate immediately. These are not wait-and-see symptoms.
And why the urgency? It's all about the money. A preventative chemical flush, if you catch it early, might cost you under $100. But if you wait until that sludge clogs your heater core, you're looking at over $1,000, and that's mostly for the labor to rip your entire dashboard out. And if it causes serious overheating that blows a head gasket, now you're talking thousands. The financial difference here is absolutely staggering.
All right, let's pivot from the problem to the solution. If you even suspect you've mixed coolants, a simple drain and refill is not going to cut it. I promise you. That gel is stubborn and you have to get all of it out.
Here's the only way to do it right. First, you drain everything you possibly can. Second, you have to use a chemical flush product, one that's specifically designed to break down that sludge, and you run the engine with the heater on full blast to circulate it. Third, you rinse with distilled water, and you keep rinsing until it comes out perfectly clear. Fourth, inspect components like the thermostat for any leftover gunk. And finally, you refill with the one and only correct coolant for your car and bleed the air out. And I cannot stress this enough. Never, ever, ever use tap water. Tap water is loaded with minerals like calcium and magnesium that will create scale deposits inside your engine, basically creating a whole new problem for you. Only use distilled water for any flushing, rinsing, or mixing. Period. All right, let's talk about how to make sure you never have to worry about any of this ever again. Because honestly, prevention is incredibly simple.
Go ahead and screenshot this right now. First, know your spec. Your owner's manual tells you exactly what to use. No guessing. Second, I highly recommend putting a simple label right on your coolant reservoir cap with the coolant type. Third, only ever use distilled water. Fourth, if for any reason you're switching coolant types, you have to do a full chemical flush. And finally, here's a pro tip. If you're ever stranded and low on coolant, topping up with distilled water is infinitely safer than adding the wrong type of antifreeze. Water won't create that killer gel.
So what about those bottles you see on the shelf that say universal or for all makes, all models? Let me be blunt, that's marketing, not engineering. No car manufacturer on the planet approves a universal coolant. Your owner's manual is the only source of truth here. Trust the engineers who built your car, not the marketing team who designed the bottle.
It really all comes down to this. Trying to save a few bucks on a generic bottle of coolant, or just topping up without checking first, can so easily lead to one of the most expensive and avoidable repairs you will ever face.
Which leaves us with just one final question to think about. After everything we've just seen, are you positive you know what's protecting your engine right now? Go check.